Man, get up here in the Zoloft to get your head right.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Zoloft. I'm gonna let y'all in on a little pet peeve of mine. It's when I get conservatives here and there telling me, hey, Zo, don't call the Democrats liberals. Well, I got a better idea. How about y'all stop helping the Democrats cover their tracks? I would like to, if I may. Ooh, a little throwback to the Rocky Horror Picture Show right there. But if I may, I would like to talk to y'all a little bit about the terms liberal, conservative, and radical. And how Republicans help the Democrats advance their lunacy with these terms. Now, I know there's a lot of conservatives out there who want to reclaim the assumed label of liberal and insist that they're the classical liberals. I don't think that's a good idea, y'all. And I really hope y'all grab my book, A Solid Right Cross, where I go in depth on why. But for right now, let me offer you this a little bit, like those tasty pretzel samples that they be handing out in the mall. Even if you insist on being a classical liberal, you still gotta be conservative about it. So we might as well get on down to the nitty gritty and be content with the term conservativity. I can see people fighting over that term right now over a Scrabble game. Check. Conservativity is not a real word. It is too a real word. It's not a real word and this isn't chess. Commie. Y'all, the natural course of liberalism is deviance. Liberalism itself is toxic to liberty because liberalism doesn't understand the balance of liberty. Liberalism only considers what it believes it should have the liberty to do. And it's effective to rallying others to their so-called revolutionary cause. The nature of liberalism is to assume to be unconstrained, even by good law. Even good law will ultimately be seen as oppressive to liberalism. Liberty to liberalism is the so-called right to take liberties with somebody else's liberty. If they see pleasure in it, they will see liberation in it. And if you protest to them imposing their pursuit of what they feel like they're entitled to, and of course at your forced expense, they will accuse you of being oppressors. That includes liberalism feeling entitled to being morally superior. And Democrats have a really nasty habit of lusting after supremacy. Liberalism assumes to take liberties with other people's liberty because it feels entitled to it. That is what freedom is to liberalism. Free to do whatever to whoever, or even whatever, without concern of what it'll cost someone else. And in some cases will even justify it to itself that somebody else deserves to bear the cost of what liberalism feels entitled to. When liberalism makes policy, it becomes liberal with taxing your money, liberal with spending your money, liberal with borrowing money, liberal with how many genders there are, liberal with who qualifies as a human being and who doesn't, liberal with our education, which becomes indoctrination. I could go on, but it'd be better if you just got my book, A Solid Right Cross. But people are deceived by the idea that liberalism means generosity and open-mindedness. No, it doesn't. Just step back for a second from the sentiments that you may have about liberalism and from the opinions of celebrated writers, and look at how liberalism plays out in the real world. Democrats ain't fake liberals. Democrats are exactly what liberalism becomes. But too many right-leaning folks want to insist that Democrats ain't liberals, which helps Democrats cover up the evils they've done in taking liberties with other people's liberty. And conservatives wonder why Democrats are so successful with suckering people with the idea that the parties and the ideologies have switched sides. Like I said, y'all, Democrats are able to capitalize on people being suckered into thinking that people can switch their sex, which means that they can easily sucker people into thinking that the parties and ideologies have switched. Conservatives are a self-defeating contributing factor to how Democrats are able to get away with what they get away with. In order to preserve this republic, it takes conservative application of the Constitution and its Judeo-Christian foundation. If you deviate from it, ergo take a liberal approach with it, oppression and murder follows. Liberal interpretation of the Constitution and its Judeo-Christian foundation will assume to insert things that weren't supposed to be there and assume to remove things that are supposed to be there. And I hope y'all get my book for deeper understanding on that, unless you're okay with Democrats retaining the House. I mean, maybe you're cool with Nancy Pelosi being Speaker of the House. Again, that cultural connection, man. I know it's got to get through at some point. That's what this book is, and that's what you need. Culture war coaching from a Christian conservative artist. Y'all, liberalism ain't a new thing with Democrats. Can you see how Democrats are enemies of the Constitution? Can you see how Democrats are obsessed with race and want to keep blacks brain chained to their plantation? Can you see where the Democrats push for a system where the fruits of someone else's labor is forced away from them to be enjoyed by somebody else? And I hope that Republicans with Confederate sentiments are really paying attention right now. You can see the things I just mentioned about the Democrat Party today, can't you? But you can't see that that was the same mindset of the Democrats who established the Confederacy? You see how much the Democrats hate the Constitution today, don't you? How much so did the Democrats hate the Constitution back then? Well, I'll tell you by thunder. The Democrats hated the U.S. Constitution so much that they created their own. That Democrat-crafted Constitution being the Constitution of the Confederate States. They swore allegiance to that Constitution and went to war against the U.S. Constitution. They didn't go to war over frickin' taxes. They went to war against the U.S. Constitution. Why? Because the U.S. Constitution doesn't have the language that allows for the institution of Negro slavery. The Democrat established Constitution of the Confederate States does. But we got Republicans waving around the Confederate flag created by Democrats who have had murderous hatred for Republicans. And again, Republicans can't figure out why Democrats are so successful with promoting the idea that the parties and ideologies have switched sides. And how it's so easy for the Democrats to promote the prejudice that Republicans are just a bunch of racists. Republicans help Democrats promote that prejudice. Well, Zoe, you don't know real Confederate history. Well, if you do, then that means you could have only learned that real Confederate history from a Democrat, because Democrats are the ones that created it. Which means the Democrats have convinced you that the Democrat cause was right. Let that sink in. Last thing I want to address is how conservatives are screwing themselves with the term radical. You're legitimizing liberals by calling them radicals and empowering them. You call them radicals when they're really not and don't want to call them liberals when they really are. Democrats are not radicals. They're rebels. But I know Republicans want to be seen as the rebels because they're all about independence and individualism. And by constantly referring to Democrats as radicals, you are legitimizing and assisting the objectives of Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky dedicated his book to the first so-called radical, Lucifer. Y'all, Lucifer ain't a radical. He's a rebel. If Lucifer was a radical, he would have adhered to the core of truth. But the devil deviated from the core of truth, which makes him a rebel. Democrats ain't radicals because they are deviant from the root of our republic and the core of our Constitution. They are of their father, the devil, the deviant rebel, and the sins of their father they will do. During the Civil War, the Democrats were rightfully called rebels. That's what the Confederacy was. Rebels, because they rebelled against the U.S. Constitution. The Republicans were the radicals because they were the ones crazy enough to take extreme measures to deprive the Democrats of what they felt entitled to. And with that radical action, the Republicans restored the republic, fighting to get back to the root, to the core. I mean, y'all might have noticed how psychotic Democrats are. And it does take being radical to tell these entitlement-minded, rebellious nuts no, because Democrats are willing to murder for what they feel entitled to. Democrats were rebels against the Constitution then, and Democrats are rebels against the Constitution today. And you are helping Saul Alinsky continue his agenda of deviance by calling Democrats radicals, when actually they have been and still are rebels. Y'all, radical has a core. Democrats ain't got no core. They got Al Gore. They're empty people who can't be satisfied. They're a bottomless void that can't be filled. Why you think they keep imposing all these crazy laws that they think will satiate their sanctimony? Y'all, they can't even be satisfied with their DNA and rebel against the very thing they claim to be champions of, science. They have no root, y'all. They have no core. Therefore, they cannot be radicals, but instead are rebels against truth and liberty. But Republicans give Democrats all the fuel they need to promote their false narrative. This right here is the one true rule book for radicals. And conservatives are helping Saul Alinsky co-opt that distinction, albeit falsely, to devote a book to the devil to deceive the people. I'm gonna tell Jesus. Bam! Don't stop, get it, get it? Like those tasty pretzel samples that they be handing out in the mall.